She saw him before he saw her, which was the advantage she had built over 2 years of being with Tyler Marsh and 6 months of being without him. She had learned to see him first. He came through the main entrance of the Caldwell building at 11:47 on a Tuesday morning, which was late enough in the morning that the lobby rush had cleared and early enough that the lunch crowd had not yet arrived, which left the marble space relatively open and made him easy to spot from the reception desk, where Nora Callihan was reviewing the afternoon's visitor log. She registered him in the way she registered most potential complications, which was without visible reaction, in the half-second before he scanned the lobby and found her face. She had the time to assess. He was in the third state, the one between the first state, which was controlled and calculated, and the fourth state, which was past reasoning. The third state was where persuasion lived, and it was the most exhausting one to navigate because it required her to maintain the specific quality of engagement that was enough to give him something to talk toward, but not enough to give him something to escalate against. She set down the visitor log and arranged her face into the expression she had developed for Tyler in the third state, which was attentive in a way that communicated nothing, and waited for him to cross the lobby. He came directly to the reception desk, which told her he had been to this building before and knew the desk was where she sat. He had been here twice in the last 6 months. This was the third time.
Tyler.
I just need 5 minutes.
You said that last time.
Last time, I did not say what I needed to say.
You can say it here.
He looked at the security guard near the elevator bank, a man named Patrick who had worked this building for 9 years and who Nora had correctly assessed as someone who paid attention without appearing to.
Privately.
This is where I work. Private is not available.
He stood at the desk for a moment, and she could see him calculating whether the public setting was a limit or an obstacle, and the calculation told her what state he was in more accurately than anything else, because in the fourth state he would not have calculated, he would have simply escalated.
I have been thinking about things.
Tyler.
I know what you are going to say.
Then this can be shorter than 5 minutes.
He looked at her with the expression she had come to understand as his version of sincerity, which was his genuine attempt to appear genuine rather than an actual expression of genuineness.
I just want to talk. I miss talking to you.
I know.
She kept her voice even, which was the technique that worked longest in this state. Give him something that was not rejection and was also not encouragement. Keep the energy neutral. Wait for him to run out of steam. This had worked the first time and the second time, which was why there was a third time. The success of the technique was also the reason for its repetition. She was in the middle of maintaining the neutral energy when she looked past Tyler's shoulder toward the seating area at the far end of the lobby, where 4 chairs were arranged around a low table near the windows. She looked there not because she had decided to look there, but because her peripheral attention had registered something and had requested her focal attention, which was a distinction she had learned to trust. A man was sitting in the leftmost chair, reading something on his phone. He was not part of the lobby's ordinary traffic of waiting visitors. He was not checking his watch, not glancing toward the elevator, not doing the small movements of a person who expected to be called somewhere else soon. He was simply sitting in the way of a person who had decided this was where they were for the time being, and he was looking not at his phone but at her and Tyler, and when she made eye contact he did not look away, which was the particular quality of someone who had already decided that looking was what they were doing and had no interest in pretending otherwise. She did not know who he was. She noted that she did not know who he was and registered the not knowing as relevant, because this building had a visitor log and a check-in procedure, and she was the person who maintained both, and she had not checked anyone into that seating area that morning, which meant he had either come in before her shift began or he had come in without checking in, and neither of those was ordinary. Tyler was still talking. She returned her attention to Tyler, which required something, and maintained the even voice. And then Tyler did what Tyler did when the even voice ran long enough, which was to close the distance. He reached across the reception desk and put his hand around her wrist, which was not his fourth state, not yet, but it was adjacent to it, and she was beginning to recalibrate her assessment of which state he was actually in, and she became aware in the same moment that the man in the seating area had stood up. He did not move toward them. He stood up from the chair and put his phone in his jacket pocket and stood with his hands at his sides and looked at the reception desk. He did not say anything. He did not make any gesture. He was simply standing in a different configuration than sitting, which changed the geometry of the lobby in a way that Tyler perceived before he identified what he had perceived, because Tyler looked over his shoulder at the standing man with the expression of someone who had identified a change in their environment without being able to name the change. The man looked back at Tyler. Tyler looked at the man for approximately 3 seconds, and then he released Nora's wrist and said,
"I'll come back when you have more time,"
and walked to the main entrance and left. Nora looked at the man. He was still standing. He looked at her for a moment with the same quality he had brought to looking at Tyler, which was unhurried and without particular expression, and then he sat back down and picked up his phone. She watched him for a moment longer, and then looked away and breathed through her nose twice without making the breathing visible, which was the de-escalation she allowed herself in these moments when the immediate situation had resolved and the adrenaline needed somewhere to go. She picked up the visitor log and held it without looking at it. The man across the lobby was reading his phone again, or appearing to read his phone, and she could not tell which, and the inability to tell which was itself a piece of information she filed in the part of her brain that held things pending further context. She was still at the desk 40 minutes later when the seating area was empty. She had not seen him leave. Patrick, when she asked him between visitors, said the man in the left chair had walked out sometime around 12:15. And no, he had not stopped at the desk. And yes, Patrick had assumed he was waiting for someone who had not come and had given up.
Did he check in this morning?
Patrick looked at the log and looked at the seating area and said,
"He was there when I started my shift."
What time did you start?
8.
Thank you, Patrick.
She wrote nothing in the log because there was nothing to write. She went back to the afternoon's visitor schedule and did not think about the man in the seating area for the rest of the day, or she did think about him, but she did not allow herself to think about why, which was not the same thing, and she knew it. 4 days. She had 4 days of ordinary, which was enough to begin to wonder if she had read the situation wrong. If the man in the seating area had simply been a coincidence with good timing, if Tyler would find somewhere else to direct whatever he was directing. She had 4 days of ordinary, and then she had a Thursday evening when she came out of the elevator into the Caldwell building's underground parking structure at 6:22 and found Tyler standing beside her car. He had positioned himself between the driver's side door and the pillar to its left, which left approximately 18 inches of navigable space, which was not an accident. She had parked in this spot for 3 months, and he had been here before, 2 months ago, which meant he had tracked the spot across that interval, which was the kind of information that changed her assessment from the third state to something adjacent to the fourth. She stopped walking when she was still 12 feet from the car, which put her in the range of the security camera mounted on the pillar 2 spaces to her left, and she noted the camera's position with the same automatic precision she had applied to noting the visitor log and the security guard's attentiveness, and all the other small calibrations that she had accumulated over 2 years of being with someone who required calibration.
Tyler.
You never let me finish.
There is nothing to finish.
You do not know that.
I do. And so do you.
I have been trying to give you space.
What you have been doing is not giving me space.
Come on, Nora.
And the "come on" was the phrase that marked the transition, because it was the phrase that appeared when he had moved past the vocabulary of the third state into the vocabulary of the state past it, the state where her responses stopped being information and became obstacles. He moved toward her. She did not move back, because moving back ceded the 12 feet she had established between herself and the car, and the 12 feet were useful.
I am going to walk to my car and I am going to get in it and drive home, and I need you to move so that I can do that.
Just talk to me for 5 minutes.
Tyler.
Stop using my name like that. Stop using my name like I am a problem to be managed.
I am not managing you.
Yes, you are. You have always done that. You make everything so controlled and smooth, and I am not a schedule to be optimized. I am a person.
I know you are a person. I am also a person, and I am asking you to let me get to my car.
He reached her. His hand closed around her upper arm, and she went through the available options in the time it took to register the grip. She could disengage physically. She could raise her voice for the camera. She could wait him out if this was going to resolve in the next 60 seconds, or it was going to require something else, something that had not yet presented itself. Then a car pulled into the space 2 spots to her right. The headlights lit the area before they cut. A door opened and closed, and there were footsteps. And then there was a man standing at a distance that was close enough to be present and far enough to not be in the physical situation, and she recognized him without needing to see his face clearly because she had spent 4 days occasionally thinking about the quality of his stillness, and this was the same quality of stillness, just in a parking structure instead of a lobby. Tyler's grip on her arm did not loosen immediately, but his attention moved, which was the physiological response of a person who had registered a new variable in their environment. He looked at the man. The man was looking at Tyler. He said to Tyler, in a voice that was entirely level,
"Take your hand off her arm."
Who the hell are you?
The man said nothing further. He just continued looking at Tyler with the specific quality of a person who had said what needed to be said and was now simply present for the outcome, and something in that quality communicated something to Tyler that she could not fully identify but that she recognized as effective, because Tyler's hand came off her arm, and Tyler said, the way people said things when they needed to appear to be choosing.
I'm done here anyway.
He walked to the elevator, and he walked at a controlled pace. And the controlled pace was the most revealing thing about it, because it was the pace of a person managing how they left, rather than simply leaving, and she had seen enough of Tyler's leaving to know the difference. She stood in the parking space and looked at the man who was now the only other person in this part of the structure. He was wearing a dark jacket, no tie, the kind of clothing that belonged to a range of contexts, and therefore committed to none of them. He was looking at her with the same unhurried quality from the lobby, which she now had additional data to understand. It was not detachment. It was the quality of a person who had already made their relevant decisions and was not in the process of making them, which freed the attention for observation instead.
You were in the lobby on Tuesday.
Yes.
You did not check in.
No.
You have been managing that for a while.
You have been managing that for a while.
I have been managing everything for a while. It tends to generalize.
I noticed.
She waited for him to say something further, and when he did not, she said,
What was it you said to him? The 3 sentences.
2 sentences.
What were they?
I told him what would happen if he came back.
And he believed you.
He understood me. Those are different things.
She thought about the distinction for a moment.
Are you going to tell me who you are?
Declan Voss.
He said it in the tone of a person sharing a fact that they understood might mean something to the recipient and were willing to wait and find out. She heard the name, and she heard it the way you heard names that you had encountered in a different context, the way a word sounded different read aloud than it looked on a page.
That name is familiar.
It is a common name in certain circles.
What circles?
The kind that overlap with the kind of building you work in.
She held the non-answer for a moment and said,
He will not be back tonight.
No.
How do you know?
Because he understood what I was telling him.
What were you telling him?
He looked at her for a moment that had the quality of something being decided, and then he said,
Nothing he should have needed to be told.
And walked back to his car, and she heard the engine, and the headlights came on, and she stood in the parking structure for another minute after the car was gone, and then she got in her own car and drove home and Googled Declan Voss before she had taken off her coat. The results were not brief. They were the kind of results that had been curated by someone who understood that what appeared in a search was as much about control as about information, which meant the information that was there was what had been decided to be there, and the information that was not there was what had been decided to be absent. The name appeared in connection with a private investment group, several commercial real estate transactions, 2 philanthropic foundations, and 1 photograph from a fundraising event 3 years ago, in which he was standing at the edge of the frame in a way that made it look accidental, and was probably not. There were no criminal records, and no investigative journalism, and no social media presence, which in her experience was not the profile of a private person but the profile of a person who had made deliberate choices about their profile. She read what was available. She closed the browser. She put the name in the part of her mind that held things pending further context, which was getting crowded, and she went to make dinner and did not think about what the name meant until she was already asleep and already past thinking. She had known for 2 months that something was off about the way she had been hired. She had not done anything about knowing, which was a choice she had made with both eyes open and which she was capable of defending on practical grounds, although she had not needed to defend it to anyone except herself, which was the most demanding audience she knew. The recruiter had called in August, which was 3 months ago, and the call had been professional, and the position had been real, and the compensation had been above what she was making at her previous job, by a margin that was significant when you were tracking a parent's medical expenses month to month. She had done her due diligence. The Caldwell Corporation was a legitimate commercial real estate company with 16 years of operating history and a board of directors whose names resolved to real people with real professional histories. The office manager position was a real position with real duties. The work was the work it had been described to be. She had accepted the job on its merits. 2 months in, she had been reviewing the vendor contracts as part of a quarterly audit when she noticed that the recruiting firm that had placed her, Acton Professional Group, was also listed as a vendor for 3 other service placements made in the preceding year. She had thought, that is efficient, a firm the company already uses. Then she had thought, or that is a firm the company uses a great deal, and she had looked at the accounts payable records for Acton Professional Group and found that the payments were routed through a holding company she did not recognize, and she had noted the name of the holding company. And she had Googled it that evening, and what she found had been sufficient to understand that she needed to know more before she decided what to do with what she already knew. She had spent the subsequent month learning more, not on company time and not on company equipment, because both of those would have been visible, but on her own laptop at home in the evenings, building a picture that she could not yet see the shape of, but that was beginning to have edges she could trace. She had found the name Voss Group 6 weeks ago. She had not found the connection between Voss Group and Acton Professional Group until the Friday after the parking structure. She did it in the morning, before 8, at her kitchen table with coffee. She was not drinking. She found it in 40 minutes because she knew what she was looking for, and she knew where companies like this registered their subsidiary entities, and she knew the naming conventions they used, which was the kind of knowledge that came from 2 years of reviewing contracts in environments where the entities on the other side of the contracts were not always what they appeared to be. Acton Professional Group was registered in a state that permitted anonymous beneficial ownership, and the beneficial owner was a holding company called Meridian Administrative Services, and Meridian Administrative Services appeared in the corporate filings of Voss Group as a wholly owned subsidiary established 4 years ago. She sat with this for a moment, and then she sat with it for another moment, and then she drank some of the coffee, which was cold. Then she got dressed and went to work. She was at her desk reviewing the morning's mail when Declan Voss walked through the main entrance of the Caldwell building at 10:15 and went directly to the elevator without stopping at reception. Patrick at the security desk picked up his phone, and she could not hear the conversation, but she could see from the quality of Patrick's posture that he was receiving confirmation rather than providing information, which meant Declan Voss had a standing clearance to this building that had been established without going through the visitor log, which she maintained. She watched the elevator close and looked at her desk and thought, there are now several things I know and several things I do not know, and I need to determine which of the things I do not know are the ones that matter before I decide what to do next. She had been doing this for 11 minutes when the elevator opened and Declan Voss came back across the lobby and turned toward her desk instead of toward the main entrance. He sat down in the visitor chair across from her desk in the way of someone who had decided to sit down and had no uncertainty about the appropriateness of the decision. She looked at him. He looked at her.
You found it.
He looked at her for a moment in the way he looked at things, which was without hurry and without the performance of patience. And then he said,
You found something.
Acton Professional Group, Meridian Administrative Services, Voss Group.
He was quiet for a moment that she read as recalibration.
How long did it take you this morning?
40 minutes to find the subsidiary chain. 2 months before that to know it was worth finding.
That is faster than I estimated.
You estimated wrong.
Yes, I am aware of that.
You placed me here.
Yes.
Without telling me.
Yes.
Through a recruiting firm that is a subsidiary of your group.
Yes.
Those are 3 consecutive admissions.
I am not going to tell you it was otherwise. I need you to know the shape of what you are working with before I explain the rest.
Start with the rest, then.
He told her about Marcus Holt. He told her in the direct and unembellished way she had come to expect from him, without the softening that people used when they were hoping to manage your response rather than inform your understanding, and she appreciated the absence of softening more than she would have appreciated the information delivered gently. Marcus Holt had been the chief financial officer of Caldwell Corporation for 7 years and had been using his position to route payments through a series of intermediary accounts to entities connected with his own interests, which was a technical description of something that had more straightforward names. And what Declan needed to confirm it was the documentation in the financial archive on the 4th floor, which was not accessible to anyone without Caldwell credentials, and which the company's own internal audit processes had been arranged to avoid reviewing. She was the only person with access who was not on Marcus's list of people who could be reached.
You did not tell me this because...
Because the information would have required you to make a choice about it, and I needed you to be in this position for long enough to have access before you made a choice that removed you from it.
That is a very clean way of saying you used me.
Yes, it is.
She held the directness for a moment.
Why did you wait so long the second time, with Tyler, in the parking structure?
He looked at her, and the quality of the pause was different from the quality of the other pauses, which had been the pauses of a person selecting information. This one was the pause of a person encountering a question they had not organized an answer to.
I was watching how you handled it.
And when you stopped watching...
When the situation passed, the point where watching was the appropriate response.
There is a difference between those two things.
I know.
I am going to think about that.
All right.
While I am thinking about it, I am going to need you to tell me one more thing.
All right.
The office I manage for Marcus Holt, the one I have had credentials to for 3 months, does it contain what you need?
The archive room on the 4th floor. Yes.
Then I suggest you be in the building this afternoon at approximately 4:30.
And she went back to reviewing the morning's mail, and he remained in the visitor chair for a moment longer, and then he stood up and left, and she heard the elevator, and then the lobby returned to its ordinary noise, and she turned to her computer and opened the staff directory and found Marcus Holt's afternoon schedule, which she had access to because her position required it, and she looked at the gap between his 2:30 meeting and his 5 o'clock call, and she started planning. She spent the afternoon doing her job, which was what she always did when she was also planning something else, because the two activities were not incompatible, and because the doing of her job was what kept her in the position that made the planning possible. She handled 3 vendor inquiries, prepared the minutes for the 9 o'clock board call that had taken place that morning, updated the visitor log for the week, and confirmed the catering for Thursday's executive lunch. And she did all of this with the quality of attention she brought to everything, which was sufficient and unremarkable and exactly what was needed. At 3:50, she sent an email to Marcus Holt's assistant, confirming that the archive room on the 4th floor would be accessible for her at 4:15 for a vendor document retrieval, which was the kind of request that appeared in her task log twice a week, and which his assistant confirmed without consulting him, which was the quality of invisibility she had been carefully maintaining for 3 months. Marcus summoned her at 4:08, which was 7 minutes before she had planned to be in the archive room, and which told her that something had changed in his information environment. She closed her laptop and went to his office, which was on the 4th floor, which was the floor she needed to be on regardless, and when she entered his office he was standing at his window in the way of a man who had received information recently and had decided the window was the correct surface for processing it.
Sit down, Nora.
Which was the first time he had called her by her first name in 3 months, and the first time was never a good sign. She sat. He turned from the window and looked at her with the expression she had seen on other faces in other contexts, the expression of a man who believed he had leverage and was deciding how to present it.
I know why you were hired.
I was hired to manage the building operations for the 4th floor and coordinate administrative services for the executive team.
That is your job description. I am talking about why you were actually placed here.
She looked at him steadily.
Declan Voss placed you here. I know because I have been monitoring the recruiting channels for this company for 18 months. An Acton Professional Group appeared in the placement record 3 months ago, and I know what Acton Professional Group is.
What is it?
A vehicle Voss uses to place people.
That is a serious claim.
It is a documented one. And I also know that you accessed the Financial Archive request system this morning to schedule a 4:15 retrieval, which is the first time in 3 months you have accessed that system, and I know that Declan Voss cleared the security desk at 10:18 this morning.
He was watching her face with the specific attention of someone who was using her reaction as data. She did not give him data.
And
I am telling you that if you go into that archive room this afternoon, what you retrieve will be used against this company and against me specifically, and what happens to you afterward will not be something I am in a position to prevent.
is that a threat?
It is a description of the situation as I understand it.
I understand the situation differently.
I am aware of that. I am suggesting you reconsider your understanding.
I will take that under advisement.
And she stood up, and Marcus said, with the specific quality of a man who had not gotten what he needed from the conversation and was not satisfied with the alternative.
Think carefully, Nora, about what you know and what you are getting into and who you are doing it for.
She walked out of his office and down the corridor and stopped at the elevator bay, which was away from the offices and which she stood in front of for approximately 45 seconds while she made the decision she had actually already made, because the making of it had happened in the 9 seconds between Marcus saying Declan Voss placed you here and her saying, "What is it?" She pressed the elevator button and went down to the lobby and found Declan Voss sitting in the seating area near the window, which was the first place she had seen him, which she noted but did not comment on. She sat down across from him and said,
Marcus knows you have been investigating him. He thinks I am working for you. He just threatened me.
What did he say?
She told him, in the order it had happened, with the same precision she applied to vendor inquiries and meeting minutes. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said,
He is running out of time and he knows it.
He used you as a reason I should not go into that archive room.
And
I am going to go into the archive room at 4:15, which is in 9 minutes, and I need you to not be in the lobby when I come back down, because Marcus will have someone watching, and I do not need the visual confirmation that we are operating together.
that is not the same as operating together.
I know. I did not say it was.
She stood up.
Nora,
She looked at him.
you understand that this is not without risk.
I understood that from the moment I found the subsidiary chain 40 minutes into this morning. I just had not decided what to do about it yet.
And now you have decided.
Now I have decided.
And she went to the elevator and went up to the 4th floor and retrieved the documents from the archive room in the window between Marcus Holt's 2:30 meeting and his 5 o'clock call, and she did it in the manner she did everything that mattered, which was quietly and without ceremony and with complete attention to what she was doing. She was coming out of the archive room with a folder of copied documents when Tyler Marsh stepped off the elevator. She stopped walking. He looked at her and he looked at the folder in her hands, and he looked at the corridor they were both standing in, and she understood, from the specific quality of his presence on a floor he had no legitimate reason to be on, that Tyler had not come here of his own volition. Tyler was not the kind of person who knew which floor of which building held which records. Tyler had been directed here, and the person who had directed him was the person who wanted her distracted, and the documents inaccessible, and the situation confused in ways that would take time to untangle.
Tyler,
Marcus said you had something you found at work that belongs to me.
that is not what is in this folder.
He said you would say that.
She thought about the 9 minutes she had available before Marcus's meeting ended, and thought about the specific quality of Tyler's presence, which was not 4th state, which was the state she had been managing for 6 months, but confused and directed and therefore less predictable than either of his other states, which was its own kind of dangerous.
Tyler, whatever Marcus Holt told you, he was using you.
That doesn't change what you have.
It changes everything about why you are here.
She heard the elevator, and then Declan Voss was in the corridor, which was not what she had asked him to do, but which was, she understood at the moment she saw him, what the situation had called for while she was in the archive room and he was in the lobby, receiving information she did not have. He walked past Tyler as if Tyler were not the immediate concern, which he was not the immediate concern in the sense that Tyler did not have a plan beyond standing in the corridor, and he stopped beside Nora and looked at the folder and then at her and said to Tyler, in the voice she had heard in the parking structure,
"You are going to go back to the elevator."
Tyler looked at him. Tyler looked at the folder. Tyler made the calculation that he had made in the parking structure, which was that the man in front of him represented a cost he was not going to pay today, and Tyler went to the elevator. Declan looked at Nora. She looked at the folder and then at him and said,
I told you not to be in the lobby.
"You told me not to be in the lobby when you came back down. You were still on the 4th floor."
That is a technical reading of what I said.
"It is an accurate one."
She looked at him for a moment and then she said,
Marcus is going to be out of his meeting in 6 minutes. I need to be downstairs before that.
"Then we should take the stairs."
and he opened the stairwell door and she went through it with the folder under her arm, and the stairwell door closed behind them, and the 4th floor corridor was empty. 2 weeks later, she was packing the things on her desk into a canvas bag she had brought from home, because it was the right size, and because the cardboard boxes that offices provided for this occasion always made the departure look more consequential than it needed to look. The Caldwell building was in a reorganization. Marcus Holt had been placed on administrative leave pending the investigation, which was the language that preceded the other language, and the other language would come when the attorneys had finished doing what attorneys did with documents like the ones in the folder she had carried down 4 flights of stairs with Declan Voss 12 days ago. The executive team had been replaced on an interim basis, and the interim team had conducted a rapid review of staffing requirements and had determined that several of her position's functions would be absorbed into the new organizational structure and several would be discontinued, and they had offered her 30 days of severance pay and a letter of reference signed by the new interim CFO, who did not know her and had written a very accurate letter based on 3 months of payroll records and 1 conversation with Patrick at the security desk, which said that she was reliable and thorough and made the security staff feel supported, which she thought was one of the better things that could be said about a person and was pleased to have in writing. She was wrapping the small plant she kept near the window when Declan Voss came through the main entrance and crossed the lobby and stood on the other side of her desk. She looked at him. He looked at the canvas bag and the plant and the cleared desk surface, which had the particular quality of a surface that had recently been inhabited and was in the process of not being.
"I heard about the reorganization."
It was expected.
"I know. I should have told you it was expected before it happened."
Yes, you should have.
She put the plant in the bag.
"I am sorry for that."
She looked at him, because the apology was not the kind of thing she had expected from him, and its arrival changed the quality of the conversation.
I know.
That is a very compact response to an apology.
I accepted it. I did not feel the need to expand on the acceptance.
All right.
He stood at the desk while she collected the remaining items, which took 4 minutes, because she had not accumulated much in 3 months, which was a fact she had considered when she took the job, and which had turned out to be useful. She picked up the bag.
"I need to ask you something."
I assumed you had a reason for being here beyond the apology.
The apology was its own reason. The question is separate.
All right.
You knew 2 months in that something was off about how you were placed here. You stayed.
Yes.
Why?
I told you. The work was real and the money was real, and my mother's medical expenses are real.
Those are practical reasons.
Yes.
Are there practical reasons that you did not tell anyone what you had found?
She looked at him for a moment.
I told myself I did not tell anyone because I did not know enough yet to know what to tell and to whom.
Was that the only reason?
No.
What was the other reason?
I had been doing this job well for 3 months. I was good at it. It was the kind of job I am good at, and it was paying what it was paying, and something was off, but the off thing was not the work itself. The off thing was the reason I was there, and I decided I could do the work without knowing the reason, and still do it well and still keep it.
You separated the work from the context.
I have been doing that most of my life. I am good at it.
I know. I read the wrong thing into it when I was deciding whether to tell you.
What did you read into it?
I thought it meant you could be placed without the information, and it would not matter to you eventually. I was wrong about what it meant.
What does it mean?
That you are the kind of person who does the work for the work, regardless of the surrounding conditions, which is a different thing from not caring about the surrounding conditions.
Yes, it is.
I understand the difference now.
I know you do. That is why we are having this conversation instead of the other one.
What other one?
The one where I explain the difference and you argue about whether it is meaningful.
He was quiet for a moment, with the quality of a person who had received an accurate description of something and had decided not to contest it.
I am opening an office for a new division. The work involves document management, vendor coordination, and systems oversight across several properties. The position requires someone who can handle information that is sometimes sensitive without it changing the quality of their work.
You are offering me a job.
Yes, with complete disclosure this time about who you are working for and what the work involves.
That is a better starting position than last time.
I know. I had more information this time.
About what?
About what you require in order to make a decision you can fully commit to.
She picked up the canvas bag and held it.
This is a job offer.
Yes.
And the other thing?
The other thing is separate from the job, and you can decide about both of them independently. I am not connecting them.
I know. You are also not naming the other thing.
No.
Why not?
Because naming it before you have decided about the job would make them harder to separate, and I want you to be able to separate them.
She stood with the canvas bag and thought about the lobby 4 weeks ago, and the parking structure, and the 4th floor corridor, and the folder, and the stairwell, and she thought about a question she had asked in an office and a pause that had been different from the other pauses. And she said,
You waited in the lobby because you were watching how I handled it, and then you came up.
Yes.
What did you see when you were watching?
Someone who had already decided what she was going to do and was executing the decision with everything she had.
That is an accurate description.
I know.
It is also the description of someone who does not need watching.
Yes, I understand that now too.
I will think about the job.
All right.
And I will think about the other things separately, as you suggested.
All right.
She picked up her plant and walked past him toward the main entrance, and Patrick, at the security desk, said,
Take care of yourself, Miss Callihan.
Thank you, Patrick.
and went out through the glass doors into the ordinary November afternoon. 3 months after that, on a Friday evening in February, when the city had done what it did in February, which was commit to the cold without apology, she was at her desk in the new office, not the Caldwell building, a different building, smaller and quieter, and hers in the sense of belonging to the work she was doing, rather than borrowed from a situation she was working within, finishing the last of the week's vendor confirmations, when she became aware that the office had gone quiet in the way it went quiet when the last of the staff had left for the weekend. She closed the final document and leaned back in her chair and looked through the glass partition at the rest of the open floor, where the workstations were dark and the only light was the ambient from the city outside. In the far corner office, which was glass-walled and therefore visible from her desk, Declan Voss was still at his desk, which was where he was on most Friday evenings, not because he had no alternative, but because this was where the work was, and he was a person who stayed where the work was. He was looking at something on his screen, and not at her, and she watched him for a moment, the way you watched something you had learned to read, and she thought about the lobby and the parking structure and the stairwell and the 3 months of being in this office, which were not the same 3 months as the Caldwell months, and she thought, this is what it looks like when the surrounding conditions are also right, when the work is the work, and the reason for the work is also the reason, and both of those things are true at the same time. He looked up. She was still watching. He did not look away, and she did not look away, and across the office there was the particular quality of 2 people who had each decided something, and both knew the other had decided it, and neither of them had named it yet, which was not because naming it was unnecessary, but because the right moment had not yet arrived, and they were both, she thought, the kind of people who waited for the right moment, rather than creating one, which was something they had in common that she had not known before this year, and was glad to know now. Hết tổng 220 đoạn.